What is going on, everybody? In this video today, we're going to be discussing the new recent update of Warhammer 40k Darktide and how it's made the game so much better. But before we get into it, if you guys haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to the channel. But let's get into it. So what exactly did the game change? So if you guys have been keeping up with Fat Shark and what they're doing with Warhammer Darktide, throughout the past year, they've been making a bunch of changes. So when the game came out, we all knew it kind of had a rocky start. I did make a video earlier this year kind of talking about the issues that the game was having, about how I literally couldn't even play the game for a month because of the constant crashing issues. But outside of the even performance and crashing issues, it had tons of problems just with balancing and just the gameplay and content and weapon crafting and just kind of the way the game was structured and the general loop in how you would play the game. But throughout this past year, they basically said that, we're going to pretty much pause on all content, future content release and future seasons or whatever they're going to do for post-launch. They basically kind of paused it. I mean, they did give a little bit here and there throughout the year, but essentially they just paused it to pretty much work on the game. Well, now this update, patch 13, is pretty much what a lot of people are kind of saying, essentially the final update for them to ready to where the game should have been at launch. So this is kind of like a launch quality update. So going into it, basically what did they change is they added talent trees, and the talent trees are going to be replacing old feat systems. You get 1 talent point per level up to 30. You can freely change your builds by adding and removing points and kind of customizing the way you want your character to be, and obviously each class will have this. Also, each class starts with baseline abilities, blitz, aura. Talent trees allow you to upgrade or replace these abilities. Some baseline abilities have been nerfed with the lost power moved into the trees. So basically everything is kind of getting funneled into these talent trees that you can then customize. And as you can see on the screen here, here's me kind of going through my talent tree and kind of some of the stuff that I've made so far, and it's giving you a certain amount of credits based on what level you're currently at in the game. Also, most old feats are now found in the talent tree, so pretty much the whole entire feat system is gone. Like I said, the talent tree is now replacing the entire feat system, so there's now a very straightforward, put together system for you to basically upgrade your character, not only your weapons and your talent, your level, but also the abilities your character is able to do. They've also added more difficulties to the game. They've tweaked the difficulties. It feels more intense. All the classes have been overhauled and tweaked. There's been tons and tons, like I said, probably hundreds of quality of life fixes with balancing and just general bugs and performance issues. So they've completely cleaned up a lot of that stuff. But to me, the big thing is obviously the talent trees, but also the difficulties. I mean, classes being overhauled, some classes getting new abilities. The Psych now has this almost like a electric bolt. I don't play him, so my friend plays him, so you might see him in the gameplay in the distance, but kind of has like, I don't know, almost like Thor, where he points his hammer and he shoots electricity, kind of something similar to that. But all the other characters have had some abilities tweaked and changed to where it plays a lot better. But one of the biggest things you'll probably notice outside of the ones I just mentioned was the difficulties being tweaked and adding more difficulties. So there was a standard 5 difficulties. 1 and 2 were pretty easy. 3 was kind of like the good average, and then until you were max level, 4 and 5 were pretty much unrealistic, at least for me at the level I was. I currently made it all the way up to 22 before I generally just kind of stopped playing. I wanted to go up to 30, but the game just was having too many issues with my system, and it became too much of a pain in the ass. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait until they clean things up. But with the difficulties being changed, level 3 and almost every level feels slightly tougher. I will say every level feels a little bit tougher, and it's constant flow. So before, you kind of have like these hordes, and then you kind of go through a pause where you're walking through the mission, and then another horde would come. Then you kind of had a pause, and another horde would come. Now it's kind of a constant flow of enemies coming at you as you run through. And as you go through, there's no longer those pauses. Even if it's not a massive horde coming at you, there's still a decent amount to kind of keep you entertained. So as you're flowing through the map, it's just constantly moving, constantly going, and you're constantly getting that intensity. But let me go into the thoughts of my game after this is almost coming up on 1 year now since the game's come out. I believe the game dropped in November. So we're about a year in, just under, and I thought this update has pretty much made the game finally feel like a full release and not so much like an early access title, which is what it felt like when the game first dropped. Which honestly, in this current day and age in gaming, every game almost feels like a early access, even when they say it's a full release, because there's just so many things to fix. So now the game finally feels like release quality. Like this is what it should have been at release. I'm glad they stuck with it. They made it better. I always liked the game from the jump, but I just knew it had its issues. And I knew the moment they were able to clean things up, it was going to get so much better. I love all the menu changes and how the vendors work. And actually, there's a form of crafting and leveling up your weapons in this game now. Before that wasn't the case. You pretty much almost had a Destiny style kind of weapon progression where you just basically, as you play, you just get higher and higher weapons. Now you can actually keep your weapons and craft them, change the rarity on them, add certain perks to them, increase the power level of them, and just make them stronger. The missions, like I said, feel way more intense even at lower levels, never feel like they're slow moments. I love the addition of the new mini bosses. I've came across a couple new mini bosses. I don't know when exactly they were added. Obviously, these are not things that were added in this past update, but this is things that they've added over pretty much the past year, and things that I'm starting to notice, and probably a bunch of others who haven't played in a while are going to experience for the first time. Overall, I think the game is in a solid state. I think them spending a year focusing on the quality of life on the game and slowing down the post-launch content to focus on it turned out to be a really good thing. And now the game can go into Q4 in a true release state, with them actually releasing content in a time where I feel like, you know, they're looking pretty good in the co-op space. There's not a ton of competition, and now they're going into this Q4, which we all know is like the biggest time for gaming, and they can kind of dominate that genre of the gaming, FPS co-op. So I think now it's perfect. Start releasing content, start releasing new weapons, you know, start really diving into that post-launch content that they had planned when the game launched. And let me go into what I would like to see next. Now that we're kind of at this point, and I talked about the patch and how I feel the game is currently at, let's kind of go into some of the things I like to see next. So honestly, I like to keep on giving the small balance changes. I want to see them add more content. As for content I would like to see, I want to see them bring in new maps, obviously, new guns, new bosses, new objectives. I think those are the big ones for me. Like, if you can get, obviously, the maps, obviously the guns, everybody kind of expects that. But like, I really think adding new bosses and coming up with new objectives, and maybe if they can find ways to kind of change the objectives at the end. I'm not sure how much they'll be able to actually do that, because a lot of the objectives are kind of built into the map. But even with the new maps that they come out, I would love to see new creative ways to kind of progress through the mission. I think it can make things really interesting, something other than just typing in the simple code. Maybe if you can do, I don't know, there's countless of ideas that I'm sure they're probably thinking of ways to kind of entertain people as you progress through these new missions and these new maps. Same thing with the bosses. I always think adding new bosses and new ways to attack your enemies is always going to keep things fresh. I think those are probably the biggest thing. Everybody expects maps and guns, but I think the biggest thing to keep things fresh is just making changes to the general gameplay loop. And I think you do that by adding new objectives and new bosses. I would like to see the expansion of the progression system so it doesn't cap at 30. I do think they did a great job with the talent trees. It does keep progression moving and going forward, so you have something to play for. But I think, you know, kind of let people, maybe you cap the power level at 30, like, I don't know, 500 or wherever it is right now, but then let people just continue to rank. Maybe 130 to 50, there's not much of a change in like how strong you are, but people can at least see how much of a veteran you are in the game. Let people showcase how much they play. I would like to see a way to just play the new content when it comes out. I know they do this whole like mission board thing, and it kind of similar to like CrimeNet and Payday, but I would like to maybe just give us the option when new content is dropped to just let them play that. I know a couple maps did release post-launch, but there's no way to just play that new map. You just kind of had to hope it got into your rotation with the way you wanted it, with the level that you wanted it at. And I would love to see more characters added with new abilities and give more players to progress. I mean, you know, keeping players busy is the biggest thing nowadays. So obviously getting more characters with more abilities and more talent trees and more things to level up is something that would be great for everybody. And I just want to end it off as I'm someone who's never played Vermintide, so I just know things. So I don't know the things that Darktide might be missing compared to that game, but as someone who just loves co-op horde shooters and getting into this franchise for the first time, going in it raw, and I'm loving the game right now. I always did like Darktide. I just knew that it was released too early. It wasn't in a good state, and it just needed time in the oven to kind of cook some more. But now I feel like the time is now and to start rolling out the roadmap and get things moving and going. But have you guys gone back to Darktide? Let me know down in the comments below. If you haven't, I do personally highly recommend going back and playing the game. It is extremely fun now. It's going to be in my rotation again as a co-op game to play alongside Payday and a couple others I have lined up. But Darktide is definitely going to be at the top of my list of games I'm going to be playing and covering throughout the future. But if you guys haven't done so already and want to see more content like this, like update reviews, news, or just general gaming discussions, if you guys haven't done so, please like and subscribe if you want to see more of that content. And yeah, peace out, everybody, and I will see you guys in the next one.